nationwide, statewide, local, and global. So today's topics involves the following: Obama versus black men, North Korea fighting for the Russians, Giuliani giving those two black women, having to give up his apartment and other assets to two black women, Elon Musk and his $1 million incentive, and then finally we're going to talk about John Kelly. But first, we had a discussion just before the show started, and I'm a former classroom teacher, and certain folks are saying that kids are going to school one gender and coming out another. So my question to my panelists and to you who are listening to the show, is there a special room in schools where these kids are being moved in and out, going in as female, coming out as male, and vice versa? What do you think?
I've always wondered about that because you know what? I don't understand how this is an issue. If you look at every single commercial, it's all about gender, and your kids are gonna change gender in school, and it's just ridiculous. So people I don't even think they even believe this because it's too ridiculous to believe. But I mean, if that's how, I want to know, one, in the history of education in this country, has it ever happened?
Well,
that's one.
Not in my classroom. Yeah. I've got some kids that ended up in detention. They went in as their birth gender.
It came out as a birth gender? Okay.
Gender, and were sent home with their birth gender.
There you go. So I don't think this has ever happened in the history of education. And the other thing is, I want to know what kind of magical machine that they got. Because if that's the case, I want to send leaves in that machine and let it come out money. You know what I mean? So, hey, it's utterly ridiculous.
Well, I'm going to ask on my Facebook page to see. I got to find it from my teacher friends. Is there a special room or machine, or is there something in the milk? I don't know. So let's go ahead and talk about Obama versus black men. Barack Obama had some frank words for black men who may be considering sitting out the election. And he says, part of it makes me think that, well, you aren't just feeling the idea of having a woman as president, and you're coming up with other alternatives and other reasons for that, he said Thursday to Harris, Walt's campaign volunteers and officials at a field office in Pittsburgh. So he touched a nerve among Democrats, and Democrats are worried now. So is there a fear of a woman becoming president of the United States?
Yes.
Why?
Why do we have MAGA? Why do we have the different things that we have? This country has never had a woman president. Some men feel like if you have a woman president, how's she going to deal with Putin? How's she going to deal with some of these other folks? How's she going to deal with Muslim leaders who don't believe in women? There's a lot of issues that come up. Nobody wants to talk about them, but they are real issues in some of these, especially men's mind. Now, I don't know that there's any woman, there's probably someplace, but most women, I would say, are for a woman being president. And I would think that most progressive people are for a woman being president. But you do have a small factor of people who do not believe it's the place. It's the same way like, forgive me for saying this, but like the Baptist ministers saying they don't want a woman in their pulpit. Same thing.
Well, yeah. No, I mean, it's toxic masculinity. It's misogyny I've witnessed. And I had no problem with Obama giving that speech to black men. I know they said he was waving his finger at black. It's not, but I mean, it needed to be called out. You know what I mean? Because there's no reason for it. Why would you support an open racism or open racist like Donald Trump, who wanted to use the military to shoot black people, who has called black countries shithole countries? I mean, who has refused to rent to black folks, who has took out a full-page ad against the Central Park Five. I mean, he has a long history of his racism. How could you support that over your own sister? How could you support that over supporting black women who have supported us in this country since the day the first of us arrived? Any black man or any man, period, who has a problem with women in leadership, I think they need to, it comes from a lack of history. They need to revisit history. They need to understand some of the strongest women who have ruled major countries. Look up Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher sent an armada to South America and whooped Argentina's ass.
Right.
This is a woman. They need to look up Angela Merkel, Chancellor of Germany, one of the strongest women in history. They need to look up Benazir Bhutto, President of Pakistan, one of the strongest women in history. Indira Gandhi, one of the strongest women in history. Our own sister, Ellen Sirleaf Johnson, who was the first woman president of Liberia. There's a track record in history of strong women who have been successful leaders, who have kicked butt. Right now, one of the leading economies in Europe is headed by Italy, who their prime minister is Angela Meloni. So I can go on and on and on and go through history and talk about women. We can go back to Catherine the Great. We can go back to all of them. But there's a history of women who have been great leaders, phenomenal leaders.
I can't remember what her name is. You guys might think it's unrelated, but the lady who was running the drug cartel out of Mexico that overtook, I think Chopper was working for her. She was kicking ass.
So I'm just going to say Kamala becomes president. Now, in my opinion, I've got two women in mind that I would love to see as Secretary of State or Ambassador to the UN. That's
my girl.
Your girl, Condoleezza Rice.
Okay.
And I can't think of her name. She's the one that was on the January 6th commission.
Liz Cheney?
Liz Cheney.
Right.
Those are some strong women. Yeah, I would say like to see either one.
Give Liz Cheney a position. She has to. I mean,
she can't be no Secretary of State.
No, not Secretary of State, but she can be ambassador to the United Nations, or she can give her another.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah, another cabinet.
And seeing Condoleezza Rice is fluent in Russian.
She is.
So there's no telling what she's told Putin before. So women can do a lot of things, and I think that, sorry, men, you just need to get over it.
Let me say this, because we're talking about Kamala Harris. First of all, this is what I believe will happen. Not only black folks, but the overwhelming support that I think that she has. Number one, I don't believe in the polls. I don't believe that you can get all of these people that are supporting her and then say that they're still neck and neck. And if that is the case, we are really a sick country. That's number one. Number two is that I think that Kamala will be elected. And once she is elected, I think it will be short-lived that the majority, I shouldn't say majority, but there'll be a good number of people that will be disappointed in what she does. And she's going to take a lot of arrows from people who they're not going to like anything she does. And there's going to be a problem with that. So prepare yourself for that. Black folks must remember that we elected Barack Obama and took him and dropped him off at the door at the White House and said, see you later, okay? And then we want to ask, well, what did he do for us? And Barack Obama said, well, you never asked me for anything, okay?
Right.
So I think that when Kamala becomes president, she's going to be faced with a lot of things that she's never been faced with before. You got this Israeli war that's going on. You got the war that's going on in Ukraine. You got these, we're going to talk about that later, but you got, the North Koreans who want to support Russia and go into there. It's just a lot of stuff that's going to be going on. The black folks are on her. The Muslims are on her. The Palestinians, the Jews are on her. Everybody is on her. And when you are in that kind of position, you definitely, if everything is okay, you can't please everybody. Okay?
Right.
And in this particular situation, there's going to be a lot of stuff she's going to, quote unquote, I guess I would say, grow up very quickly.
Well, yeah, I mean, nobody's ever prepared to be president. That's a very unique position, a unique experience. So, but no, yeah, there's going to be, the challenge is already there. Even before she steps in office, the challenges are already there. But, it's the job she wanted, it's the job she asked for. And so she's stepped into other roles before that she was unfamiliar with. But I mean, I think that she is a lot of that is going to be about judgment. She's going to have the people around her. As long as she builds a good cabinet, people around her, and bring in experts, like I said, one of them, Condi, she brings in just the people who are, who have the experience. You know what I mean? Because she doesn't have foreign policy experience.
I think you
but if she brings in the right people, she'll be okay.
I think you touch on a good point, talking about the right people, and I think that's what's going to really help and educate her as well. Because I agree 1,000% with what you said. She's got to bring in the right people and that can advise her and help her along the way.
Yeah.
And this is probably a benefit of if and when she becomes president. The fact that she's looking at already doing have a diverse cabinet of Democrats and Republicans. So I like that. So she's got a lot on her plate. So you mentioned North Korea fighting for the Russians. So pull my little notes out.
Put your peepers on.
So one of the reasons why Russia had to go ahead and invite the North Koreans over was they're trying to replace the dead and the wounded, Russian soldiers. And so some military analysts believe that the Kremlin will have a hard time maintaining this pace without resorting to another round of unpopular mobilization. So with the North Koreans standing at, actually going into Ukraine to fight, what are the implications of these actions to the United States as well as the Black community? I mean, what can we look for? Oh, you got your finger up?
I got a question. Okay, so if North Korea is helping Russia, and Caleb hopefully can answer this, where does that put the United States? Because it's kind of like Israel saying we've got to give an answer to somebody else. We can't even get involved in the Ukraine war, but yet and still, if you've got North Korea who's involved in the Ukraine war on the side of the Russians, there has to be something to try to balance that out. Is there another country that comes in to help on the side of Ukraine, or is there something that the United States does? Do they? I don't know what happens.
What's China's involvement? Where is China somewhere?
They're going to be on
back
Russia's
end.
side.
They're on the back end somewhere.
Yeah.
So we'll take it from the top.
Take it from the top.
Take it from the top. So China's interest is in prolonging this conflict in Ukraine. They eventually want Russia to win, but they don't want Russia to win right now.
Why?
Because they need to buy time because the Chinese economy is struggling. So they're supporting Russia. By supporting Russia, they're prolonging the conflict and buying time for their economy to get back on track. So they eventually want Russia to win, but just not right now. On our end, we want Ukraine to win, but we can't let Ukraine win too fast because there was an issue of Russia using battlefield nukes. So we want Ukraine to win, but we can't let Russia win bad. Russia lose that bad, that fast. So, there's a lot of different interests going on that's prolonging this, that's expending Ukrainian lives while this geopolitical game is being played out. But, like, for instance, China let Russia establish a drone factory in China. So they're actually manufacturing drones for Russia in China. So they have an interest in prolonging this. As far as North Korean troops, that's a dangerous escalation. At the beginning of the conflict, there were international brigades that came in to assist Ukraine, right? Those are pretty much gone right now. But this conflict is going on to the point where Russia has the advantage in manpower and industrial power, right? That advantage is gone as far as manpower goes.
Is that because of attrition? Or
that's because of a lot of attrition.
Okay.
So Russian casualties are probably over 1 million.
This whole conflict, in Russia, Ukraine, something that you sent me that Condoleezza Rice said was, and I'm going to paraphrase it, is how whoever becomes president has to go in there with an ideal as to how they want the United States to be viewed as a leader worldwide. Do we want to look like we're weak, or do we want to look like we're strong? And so, again, I think that philosophically, Trump has an idea on how he wants the world to see the United States, and Kamala has an idea, has a philosophy on how she wants the world to see the United States. I'm sorry, I'm pro-military. I'm hanging tight with my girl, but this is a serious situation. You know, we're at a crossroads right now.
Well, that helps the question.
This is the deal, though. So you cannot let Russia win because it changes the entire international order. Right now we have what we call a rules-based order, right? And so if you allow Russia to gain territory by force, it completely changes that order. And we reverted back to a time where the strong overtakes the weak, where the might makes right. That's why China wants Russia to eventually win, because they need to study that. What is going to be the world's reaction if Russia wins in Ukraine? What are going to be the repercussions? What are the long-term repercussions? Because they want to take Taiwan.
Okay.
So to them, this is a study.
Okay.
We're going to see how the world reacts to Russia taking Ukraine. That's going to give us an indication of what the world is going to say when we take Taiwan.
But in answer or in questioning both my original question and going back to what you raised, how are we as the United States, what do we look like, and how do we handle North Koreans being in...
Right. A couple of things.
Okay.
So we haven't played our hand yet.
Okay.
But we have plenty of hands to play.
Okay.
So one, this is a major escalation, is what I want to get to. We have been arming Ukraine, but we have not committed troops.
Right.
This is a commitment of troops, which it crosses a red line because it changes the conflict from a European conflict, a European ground war between two nations, to now a global conflict, because now you have foreign troops coming from Asia that are direct battlefield combats. France has never ruled out committing troops to Ukraine. They've flirted with the idea repeatedly. This changes that dynamic because now there's nothing to stop France.
But let me ask this. When you say troops, do you rule out U.S. troops?
There won't be U.S. troops. France is in a different position because France has legionnaires. They have the French Foreign Legion.
Okay.
And so those troops are from all around the world.
Okay.
Legionnaires.
Okay.
The worst thing North Korea could do is face a couple of armored brigades of French Foreign Legion. So that changes the dynamic. So some of the cards we have to play is because you can see a scenario where it's not U.S. troops, but where you can see French troops, French legionnaires. You can see Brazilian troops. You can see Colombian troops. You can see Argentinian troops. The U.S. has plenty of cards to play. Like, okay, y'all want to play this game with troops? We have stuff that we can do and get troops to the battlefield that they won't want to see.
So I got one other question. So depending on who wins the election in November, between November and the January 20th inauguration date, there's going to be a quote unquote, I guess, game to play, because if, let's say, Trump should win, then Biden is not going to want to help him at all. But at the same time, he's for everything that's going on that's kind of against America. However, if Kamala wins, then he and Kamala can talk to each other and say, this is what we want to do. Why don't you go ahead and do this? And he can say. And
you got to remember, Trump has already said that if he becomes president, he's just going to tell Putin, do whatever you want, do whatever you want to do.
If he becomes president, he is going to pull U.S. support from Ukraine. The Europeans have already prepared for that.
Okay.
So not only is Europe prepared to take the lead in that and to continue assistance to Ukraine, you have a time period where if he wins, Biden is going to make sure that Ukraine is as much aid and he's going to do as much as he can to secure Ukraine. You know what I mean? If Kamala wins, it still places Biden in a position where he's out of there.
But he's not out of there.
He still has time to do, you know what?
Right.
Hey, this is not on Kamala.
Right.
This is
Exactly.
this is on me.
Exactly.
So now you have a situation where
And she
Biden
can
is now
always
free.
say, that was him. It wasn't me.
It was
Hey,
it was
it
Biden's
wasn't me.
policy. Yeah, it was so Biden now that frees him. Either way, after the election, Biden is free.
Right.
And he can do whatever he wants to do
Yeah,
as
'cause
far
he's
as
lamed up.
as far as U.S. Ukrainian policy, which is dangerous for the Russians.
Okay.
Well, let's go over to New York. Giuliani. So you got to remember that Giuliani defamed two Georgia election workers, Wandrea Moss and Rudy Freeman and Wandrea Ross, and they won a $148 million defamation judgment against Giuliani. So, what are they about to gain?
An apartment in Manhattan.
An apartment in Manhattan,
Sell it.
28 luxury watches, a 1980 Mercedes-Benz owned by movie star Lauren Bacall. He must relinquish a shirt and picture signed by Joe DiMaggio and Reggie Jackson, a signed Yankee Stadium picture, a diamond ring, costume jewelry, and money in certain bank accounts. So how is this going to be transferred? So lawyers in the case say details of the property transfer will be worked out in the coming days. Giuliani could send the items to a place of Freeman and Moss's choosing. If he doesn't agree to that, Freeman and Moss may have to rent a truck or a van at their own expense and send it to Giuliani's apartment or wherever the assets are. Now, depending on what that apartment looks like, I may have to go move in there for a while. Bring in some decorators and everything to kind of get the stench out. But this is, I love this. I love this. He just defamed these women, and he got what was coming.
Yeah. He did Trump's dirty work, and he's the one. Everybody around Trump who's done his dirty work has either gone to jail or got sued, lost money. Everybody's paying the consequences but Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I love the fact that these sisters got all of that money, because I'm sure that penthouse in Manhattan is worth tens of millions of dollars, if not over $100 million.
Well, I'm gonna be watching Selling New York or Selling Manhattan, whatever that real estate show is, to see if that apartment shows up on an episode. An episode. So I'm gonna be watching that, because they may not even want to move up there, but that apartment is worth something.
Well, I'm sure they probably got to sell it and split the money, because I don't think they're not sisters or related. They probably don't want to live together, but they got to sell all that good stuff, split that money, and live happily ever after.
Now I may keep the
Because
Mercedes.
you have two women, involved in this suit. I have a feeling they'll hire somebody to liquidate all of that, and they take and split the profit.
Yeah,
I would keep the car.
Oodles of lawyers.
I would keep the car.
Well, somebody can keep the car. I wouldn't keep no 80
No.
Mercedes. I don't care who owned it.
Well, I would.
But it was owned by who? Joe DiMaggio?
No, Lauren Bacall.
Lauren Bacall. So, I mean, they can auction, probably get some money for it since it's owned by Lauren Bacall. They probably get some,
1980?
they probably get some big bucks for it just because she owned it.
Sell it.
Yeah, I'd sell all of it.
I'd sell
all
it
of
all.
it. I think the
wouldn't-
only thing
you
Rudy
wouldn't-
could keep is his father's or grandfather's watch. Was the only thing he could keep. Other than that, Rudy's broke.
Man, Rudy had to give up his draws on this one, didn't he?
He gave up everything.
What's Rudy's wife saying?
Is her Mrs. Rudy?
Yeah, I think so. And she's saying that. Oh, well, at least his daughter is saying, he did all this for Trump, and Trump leaving him out to hang.
Yeah. Yep. That's the lesson. The Trump has left everybody out to hang. Contractors, all his lawyers keep quitting because they're not getting paid. I mean, that's just the nature of dealing with Donald Trump.
And then you got the little man that he still owes money to. They're not, in fact, even during his campaign visits, he's left cities and communities high and dry on the bills.
Oh, yeah, not paying for the police protection. And yeah, he's left taxpayers high and dry repeatedly.
So, Elon Musk. Elon Musk. He wants to give away $1 million, I guess, a day as an incentive for voters
Right.
in the swing states. And so the DOJ has gotten on and say, hey, that might be against the law.
Oh, it is against the law. And they did say it might be against the law. It's against the law.
He said, cut it out. Cut it out.
So you think this is hurting his relationship with Trump?
No.
No.
And it won't.
No, it won't.
And we
I
talked
agree.
about it.
I agree.
Because Elon never liked Trump. You can go back, it's well documented, all the names he called Trump. He never liked Trump. But Elon understands that Trump could be manipulated. Elon understands that Trump doesn't know anything about business or economics or global affairs or anything like that. So Elon's reason for backing Trump is because Trump is a protectionist. Trump is going to protect Elon from all of those very, very good, high quality Chinese EVs. He's going to protect Tesla. That's what it all boils down to is, hey, keep those Chinese EVs out of the U.S. market.
Because they're not in the U.S. right now.
They're not in the U.S. right now. Mm-hmm. But the chairman of Ford has been driving one for the last 6 months. Mm-hmm. And he said that is an existential threat to the American automotive industry. Mm-hmm. So that is what Elon's whole thing is. I'm going to make sure Trump gets in office so he can protect Tesla.
All righty then. Mm-hmm. And then finally, Marine 4-star General John Kelly. This has been a week of revelations where he has come out and basically said that Trump getting a second term will be the worst thing for this country. He's saying that he's a fascist and it will be worse.
Yep.
And I'm listening to Kelly. I'm listening to other generals. I'm listening to a lot of people who've been in that situation room who have been put face to face with this man. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm biased. I'm a military brat. I'm a military ex-spouse. I work with military people, and I tend to listen to generals. I listen to those military leaders because they know more about what's going on than we know, and the security clearances that they have puts in position to hear and see some things that we don't even want to know about. Mm-hmm. So I believe John Kelly. Mm-hmm. I think that as a nation, depending on, and I don't care whether you don't want to vote for somebody because of this and this, but those generals are still trying to protect this country, to the very, very end.
Mm-hmm. And it's all of them. Not just Kelly, it's Mattis. And I mean, it's every general that has served with him and said he's an existential threat to this country. He's a threat to democracy. And this guy has an affinity for dictators. He has an affinity for Hitler. He says, I need generals like Hitler. And they try to give him the benefit of the doubt. Like, do you mean Bismarck? Do you mean, no, I mean Hitler. So
and he wanted these generals to act like Hitler's generals.
Yes.
So, United States, if you vote for him, I'm just going to say it, you're a fool. Because the generals are saying that he is a serious threat to this country.
We'll get some comments about that.
Well, yes, we did, and I stand by it, because again, I was married to somebody with a security clearance, and there were some things I just didn't know and didn't want to know, and these guys know stuff that we don't want to know. But they're sending out a 911 call to the nation on the severity of this election. And I think that common sense needs to kick in to say, if these are military generals who sat in the room while he was eating whatever he was eating and McDonald's, whatever he was doing, we need to listen to these generals. And I will always put my money on the generals.
Well, let me say this in closing. I know that there'll be a lot of folks who feel the same way as you feel, putting their faith in the generals and the military. However, if Trump becomes president, this guy knows nothing about military operation. He knows nothing about how things are supposed to work, that the military is not supposed to be called on our own people. And they have already said, there's been certain times that, and I don't know how you do this. He would have to go through somebody to call the military but he's called them up and told them, hey, come over here to Pennsylvania Avenue and get these folks, or go up there to Minneapolis for the George Floyd thing. And the generals are trying to tell him, well, we don't do that.
Right.
And they have stopped him.
Right.
But the question is that he became very close to doing that. How are they going to stop him in the future?
Yeah, that's a scary thing. That's really scary because who's he? First of all, these generals who are assigned these positions, are they going to be fired? Are they going to be bringing in a Boy Scout brigade to do, situation room, decisions? Who are going to be the quote unquote quasi military leaders?
He has the right to fire general after general after general. Those generals, when they refused that order, they weren't protecting the protesters. They were protecting American democracy.
I agree.
And I'm going to tell you why. Because the generals understand history very well. And one of the things that Trump doesn't know anything. I'll give you some recent history. The last time a president tried to call out generals to shoot his own troops, he got overthrown, and that was in Russia. Because what Trump doesn't realize, and what a lot of people, they say, oh, this is the military, this is the military. The military is not an institution of its own, by its own, created out of the mist. The military comes from the people of this country. No soldier is going to go out there and shoot his brother, cousin, mother, father. They had to learn that in Russia. I'm not going to go out there and I'm not going to shoot my mom on the street. I'm not going to go shoot my grandmother. I'm not going to shoot my cousin. I'm not going to shoot my brother. I'm not going to shoot the people I grew up with. So what would have had, if he would have given that order, those troops would not have obeyed that order. And that would have probably been the first time in American history when those troops would not have obeyed an unlawful order by a commander-in-chief, and they would have walked in there and they would have arrested his ass. So they weren't protecting the protesters, they were protecting American democracy. And if he tries that again, it'll be the first time in American history that a president has his ass escorted out of the White House.
I hope you're right.
And with that in closing,
One more thing. I need to ask.
Okay, go ahead and ask.
Latinos about Jessica Gillen.
Oh, yeah.
We need to have that conversation because Trump said it does not cost $60,000 to bury a fucking Mexican. That's what he said after he promised to pay for her funeral. And after he lost the election, he reneged on that promise. And he did not pay for that woman's funeral. And those were his exact words.
And this is a former military person.
And he has she was in the military. She was murdered.
She was stationed at Fort Hood.
She was a soldier. She was a young Latina soldier. And that was what he said.
Did you know her sister?
Well, hold on. Before we get to that, but he has repeatedly called for the deportation. And he does not, he doesn't view you as different. He doesn't understand the difference between Mexicans who just got here and the Mexicans who've been here. He does not. He calls all Mexicans drug dealers and rapists. And there is no differentiation between you. And you support him. So why is that? What is going on? Why do you think you're different? Because you're not. Because he's going to round you up. I don't care if you second, third, or fourth generation, because they don't believe in birthright citizenship. They don't believe in anchor babies. They've made that clear. Project 2025 or whatever it is has made that clear. If you have brown skin, you can get ready for Homeland Security backed by the National Guard to be knocking on your door asking for your papers. But that right there should have been the last straw when he said it does not cost $60,000 to bury a fucking Mexican. And if you vote for him, you are sad and pathetic and your mind is gone. You're brainwashed. And they're going to show you that no matter how many generations you are, how light your skin is, they're going to show you what they really think about you. So y'all need to think about that when y'all walk into that voting booth.
And I want to say that they want to enact some legislation back from 1784 in the early 1800s. And I looked at, and if you study history and you look at those laws, there's only one theme that transcends all of them, and that's oppression. So if you vote them in, oppression will come. Did you want to say one more thing?
Nope.
Well, we want to thank Linnell Taylor, who has been our producer today. We also want to thank Carl Booker. And we also want to say thank you to our founder, Mr. Frederick Williams, because without him, the three of us would not be sitting on this couch. And Fred has retired. That's how come you haven't seen him recently. So with that being said, we want to thank you for listening to Contemporary Black Voices, where we tell our story our way. Well, there's a lot of shit out there. This man,